Hello, you wonderful little marketing bees. You're tuned in to episode 68 of the Marketing Buzzword Podcast.
This is the Marketing Buzzword Podcast, the podcast where we dissect the world's most common marketing buzzwords. Hold on tight. We are about to fly around the beehive to see the latest buzzwords that stuck to the marketing bees.
Hello and welcome to the Bitesize section of the Marketing Buzzword Project and Podcast, aptly named Bitesize Buzzword. I'm Ben Roberts, and in these bite-sized snackable episodes, I'm going to help you dive deeper into what a specific marketing buzzword actually means, how you decide whether it is or isn't important to your business, and if it is, actually how you can incorporate that buzzword into your marketing strategy. Now this week, we're going to look at something that's highly, the timing has just been perfect for this, and it's the buzzword self-publishing. Now, the reason this is so perfect, obviously it's all planned. I didn't just sort of happen to stumble across it at the right time. But this morning at 6:30 a.m. UK time, I submitted the first draft manuscript of my new book, Marketing Buzzword, to Marketing Authority. And so it seems very apt that actually this week in Bitesize Buzzword is going to be about self-publishing. And look, in this episode, we're going to specifically look at what self-publishing is, how you do it, look at the differences and similarities to traditional publishing, and help me maybe decide which one you'd want to go for. Some do's and don'ts as well. So this is from my experience of actually getting through some of this process, and then be some other bits after, and sort of get you in the idea of actually what self-publishing is. So, self-publishing is essentially a process that's fully controlled by the author in terms of how they publish their book. This includes the creative process, the selling process, the editing process. Essentially, everything is in the hands of the author. This includes all the costs of the business, of the project, and it also includes all of the rewards. So, i.e., you keep 100% of what you make, and you lose 100% of what you invest, or you lose 100% if you don't make any money. Self-publishing comes with huge risks, but also comes with huge rewards. Now, this is a model which is growing substantially, largely off the back of places like Amazon and Kindle where people are able to easily produce their own text, either in an ebook form or actually via a print book. No longer do we require a traditional publisher, or even when these hybrid publishers. This is something now that people can really take control of themselves. I guess this is where a route that a lot of industries have already gone down, and publishing is one of the newer industries to come into this, where the control of it is back in the hands of the customer and the end user, or someone who actually wants to do it. They don't have to rely on expensive middlemen. They don't have to rely on agents. They can literally go straight from their idea straight to creation. And you can do it all yourself. So, as I am doing, I've found the editors myself, the proofreaders, the cover book designers, and I decided I'm going to do it all myself and manage the project being me. Now, that doesn't work necessarily for all people, and it doesn't necessarily suit all people. For some people, you may want to use a self-publishing company. I found some of them to be very hit and miss in terms of my experience in trying to find the right one for me. And it's something that is worth considering if you haven't got necessarily the time to be able to manage a project yourself, if you haven't got the expertise. Now, I feel that myself, I've got enough marketing nous and enough knowledge and enough contacts to be able to promote this book myself. I know enough people that have self-published so that I can actually understand that process and not make a huge number of mistakes. Yes, I'll make some mistakes, and that's sort of almost factored in. But I guess with a self-publishing company, you reduce some of those risks, but again, those costs are slightly higher. So, it's up to you. And then you look at sort of from a more traditional publishing model now. Now in a traditional publishing model, everything is handled for you. This is everything, and almost everything is taken out of your control. You pay very little, if not nothing, for your book to be published. They take on the risk, but they also handle the marketing, the promotion, the strategy. You lose control, potentially. Not necessarily lose full control because it's your book, but you will lose a lot of editorial control. You will lose a lot of creative control, and you may end up being forced, not necessarily, but you may end up being forced to create something that's not what you originally hoped it would be. It becomes something else. Now, that's neither good nor bad, because the traditional publishers should have an expertise. If you've gone with the right traditional publisher, they should have an expertise in that market. They should have experience in creating and knowing what it takes to create a bestseller in that market, or what sells and what doesn't. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but you do lose that control. But that loss of control also comes coupled with less risk. That less risk means actually you can maybe be a bit more bold. Actually, you don't have to worry about the cost of it. If it's not what you hoped, it's a balance. If it doesn't sell well, the costs are on them, not you. So if it is a risky book that isn't necessarily going to take off, and you can find a publisher that will take it on, interesting. I guess the difference is if you go through a traditional publisher, they are less likely to touch you if you are a risky venture. So again, if you're a first-time author, if you're someone who hasn't got an audience or isn't able to prove that there is a viable audience for your book, then actually you're probably less likely to get that publishing deal in the first place. So the risk here, it is really, really minimal. Now, the way that traditional publishing will work is that because they have taken on the costs, or at least the majority of the costs of producing the book, you will not keep 100% of the royalties. You will keep a percentage, which is i.e. a percentage of the profit on each book. So that's taking away the cost of actually producing the book. Some of these royalties are can be okay, some of them are quite low. It obviously depends upon the individual publisher. What you do get, though, is you get the ability to have a recognised publisher's name, potentially recognised publisher's name, attributed to your book. That is a trust mark. That is almost like having a certain level of online reviews. It's about having that social proof. So if a publisher of a certain magnitude agrees to publish your book, then actually that is a really credible nod in the direction of your book, saying, okay, a publisher has taken the chance and thinks that this is going to be a bestseller. And that just takes a little bit of time. Now, the final thing I want to sort of add into this really is actually just some, like I said right at the start of this episode, just talking about sort of some of the do's and don'ts, just from my initial foray into this world of self-publishing. And I say this is where this podcast has actually come at a really nice time, really. I'm obviously going to say it's obviously planned because I want to look like I know what I'm doing on this podcast. But one thing that I've learned that you need to do if you're self-publishing is really have that plan and structure in place. If you're not haven't got your thoughts and your ideas organized, you are going to struggle to even traditional published, whether it's self-published or not. You've got to be able to understand what the purpose is of the book and what you want people to get out of it, and actually how it's going to be set up. I don't think that you can set up and necessarily go and just write an entire book. I'm sure there will be someone out there somewhere who can do that, but I will happily place a huge wager on 95+% of you would have to plan it. And I'd recommend it because that way, I guess with my book, there were certain parts that I really struggled to write. And it was because I had set out each of the chapters, what I want to include in those chapters, I was able to push through in some of those. If I didn't have that plan, I was trying to think on the fly, it wouldn't work. And some days you have better days, some days you don't have you have bad days. Some days you can't think imaginatively, and other days it's literally streaming out of you and you can't hold back. about trying to find that balance. By having some sort of plan structure, you can work towards that. Yes, you can add and remove bits, you can change bits as we go along. So that's not a problem. But if you have that structure, you have a base to work with. Build time in as well. When you look at self-publishing, or again, even traditional publishing, build time. This means actually having set times where you write. Don't just think, I did this poorly at the start. I was like, okay, I'm going to just have an hour here. I'm going to do an hour there. Actually build time and say, no, this is, put in your calendar. This is the bit that worked very well for me. Is I literally put blocks in my calendar. Said, okay, from 4:30 till 6:30 this morning, you're going to write. From 8 till 10 tonight, you're going to write. Okay, you've got a lunch. You're going to take a longer lunch in work. You're going to write then. These are the times that you actually have to really. These are the set times that you have to plan. It's really tough, but actually by putting time in there, you are able to understand how long it will take because you've actually got a record of it. So you spend 2 hours, you know you can roughly get out this much time. If you've planned, say, 20 sessions over a course of a month, you should be able to understand roughly, give or take, how many words and how much content you can create in that time. That is really important because then you know how long it takes, and that is how you can then put your overall self-publishing plan together. And the final thing I would say as well is speak to other authors. By you using the experience of them, you're able to understand which of these methods is going to work better. Now, again, I haven't gone down the traditional publishing method. I am still doing my self-publishing journey. So I'm going to potentially do another one of these bite-sized episodes about self-publishing after the book is published, and I'll be able to give you more of an insight into the latter stages of self-publishing. But I want to close out with this. Is the good thing about self-publishing is everything is in your hands. If you have the time and you can project manage and you can basically be quite disciplined in your own self and you know what you want from the book, then that's potentially for you. If you just want to write a book and you want some of the less risk, you don't want to take the cost on, you can try and find a traditional publisher. A lot of them will be quite demanding, so you have to really weigh up the pros and cons. But ultimately, self-publishing is a thing. It is here to stay, and you'd be unwise to ignore it. Thank you so much for listening again to this week's Bitesize Buzzword. I'll be back on Monday with another guest episode. And if you are enjoying the show, please do leave a review on iTunes, and I will keep updated with the progress of the book when I get it back from the copy editor. So fingers crossed she enjoys it, and I'm looking forward to sharing this book with you in the new year. Goodbye.
This podcast is part of the You Are the Media Network.